kids. This week we are thinking about habits. I wonder, have you got any habits? Maybe whistling when you walk to school? Or picking your nose? Oh no, I'm sure none of you do that. Some habits are really good, aren't they? And some are not so good. Well, today I'm going to get really comfy and cozy and get out my big storybook because I would like to tell you a story. I would like to tell you a story about somebody called Mr. Hosey. Now, Mr. Hosey had a habit. And are you sitting comfortably? Then let's begin. Okay, here we go. Mr. Hosey and his habit. Mr. Hosey had worked on the railways for over 50 years, and his job was he was a station master. And for 20 of those years, the station he worked at was small and busy, and Mr. Hosey took pride in keeping it attractive and welcoming for all the visitors that came along. Now, Mr. Hosey was approaching his 70th birthday, and it was time for him to think about retiring. He had enjoyed his working life, but he was now looking forward to an extra hour in bed in the morning and time to do all those jobs around his home that he just hadn't quite got around to doing. For the first 3 months of his retirement, he hardly stopped working. He redesigned his front garden. Then he went on and repaired the fence in the back. Then he spent time and redecorated every room in his house. He often talked with his friends and family about the time he enjoyed working as a station master. And one day, his wife suggested to him that he go back to the station to visit his friends and see how things were going. Wow, he was really looking forward to seeing everybody again. So the next day, that's just what he decided to do. He had a really great day with his old friends, but soon it was time for him to catch the train home again. He walked out onto the platform that he had walked along so many times in his working career before, and he watched the people coming and going. A train pulled in, and he couldn't help but noticing there was a young woman who was struggling to get on the train with a pushchair and a suitcase and 2 young children in tow too. With a smile, Mr. Hosey picked up the pushchair and the suitcase and carried them into the carriage so that the mother only had to think about her children. "Oh, thank you," she said. "Oh dear, I was so worried about how I was ever going to manage with all of this to carry, and my children too." Stepping off the train, Mr. Hosey saw an old man who was fully loaded with parcels. So he took the largest parcel and carried it to the carriage for him. "Oh, so kind of you," said the old man. "I have to say, I was struggling a bit with all of these parcels." Well, back on the platform, Mr. Hosey then noticed something else. He noticed a young man with his foot in a plaster cast, and he was leaning heavily on his crutches and finding it very hard to make the step up onto the train. Well, it wasn't long before he felt the reassuring hand of Mr. Hosey at his elbow, supporting him to make sure that he got onto the train really safely. It was only when Mr. Hosey saw the mother and her 2 children giving him a friendly wave as the train pulled out that it struck him. They were on the train that he was supposed to be on. He had missed his train. You know, he had spent his whole life helping people on and off of trains, and although he had retired, he just couldn't stop the habit. He laughed to himself a little bit. Wow, an hour till the next train. Oh well, I think I've got time for a cup of tea, and then I'll check out the waiting room. Well, Mr. Hosey had developed a lifetime of habits, hadn't he? He'd been doing these things for his whole life, and they'd become habits. Well, today, kids, you learned that Daniel had a lifetime habit too. He had a lifetime habit of praying to God because he had developed this habit and it had prepared him when difficulty came. When he was told that he could not pray to God, he kept on because he knew his habit was important. And when that meant that he would be in trouble and he would get thrown into a den of lions, what did he do, kids? He trusted God. You see, a habit of serving and following God and praying to Him is a really good thing because we get to know God so much better. And Daniel knew that God would protect him and take care of him and look after him. And he surely did when he met those lions. I wonder, kids, are you going to develop a habit of being a friend of God? Are you going to try and pray and read your Bible every single day of your life? I'm going to try and do that. Why don't you join me? See you soon, kids. Bye.